Hey guys, Sally Freeman from Lighthouse Accountants here. Today I've got a tip for you on how to allocate rules in QuickBooks. So from the banking area in your company, what you can do is there's two ways of doing it. The first one is to do it directly from the expense section. So you can click on an expense here, for instance, for parking, pop in the name of this the supplier. So you might, pick this one here. And then we're going to go ahead and put that either to travel expenses, or we might put it to parking if we want to be a bit more specific. And then we need to put the GST in, which is always important. When it offers you that question, you can say yes, and that means from now on, every time you use travel expenses, it will allocate the GST for next time. So what we can do is, instead of just adding this in here, we can go ahead now and create a rule up here. We can name it parking. And one of my big tips here is that sometimes we'll pick up just one account. Make sure you click all accounts, because then if you have multiple bank accounts or credit cards, it's going to mean that it's going to pick it up in all of those accounts. You don't have to make multiple rules. And the second thing is, you might find that if you have a shorter word, so instead of saying, parking council or parking Sydney or something, if you keep it really generic, it's more likely to come up with more, it'll allocate and find more transactions. But if we test that rule, it's going to tell us that it's found one transaction. Now, if, for instance, we wanted to find two separate transactions that were really similar, we might put another one in here and we'll call it parking. And we're actually going to put it in as a bank text, because sometimes what happens is the bank information will come through differently as a description or a bank text. Don't ask me why, but each bank's different. And I've noticed that if you notice your rule isn't working, this is a really common reason why. So have both of those, but what would happen now is, if we tested that rule, it wouldn't work, it is going to work, but if it was a more specific rule, it wouldn't work, because we're saying include all of the following, but we might want to change that to any. And that's particularly important if you're asking QuickBooks to check for two separate things. Now, we're happy with how this rule looks, and one thing is whether or not you're going to toggle this on or off to automatically apply. Now, for things like parking, I might be more inclined to put that through automatically, but I like to visually check through these myself. So you can toggle that off, and then that way you get a chance to review it in this common banking section here. Sometimes you'll notice that they'll put the bank text in down the bottom, and you just have to delete that, but it's not happening on this particular instance. So we can go ahead and make that rule. And if we want to find that rule, we now have to scroll up so we can see it's working. It's gone green. We go up here to rules, and that's our first rule that we've created. Now, if we need to make a change because we suddenly want to add something else into that, we click the edit button. And say you wanted to add in here, let's say, for instance, council, because a lot of the time parking is in councils. So again, we've got any condition there, not all, and we can then go ahead and save that. Another thing that we might want to do in this rule is change it to be just council, and we could add a condition about the amount. So if it's the word council, but it's actually less than $10, which is most parking, or you might say $20. And in this case, we're actually going to toggle this to all, because we want it to think about both of those when it's analyzing a transaction. So we can go ahead and update that one there. But now, because I want to go back and get that one working on the main page, I'm going to delete the amount, delete the council, and I'll just go back to parking. Okay, I'll just see if we've got, so let's pretend This is for Sydney City parking. You might often have to pay for parking in the city. So we can just add the new supplier straight from that rule section in, copy and paste it over into the company name and save. We don't have to put the rest of the details in. Okay, and now that's going to pick up the rule with the correct payee that we want it to. And we're going to save that. So now they are the two main ways that you can add a rule. You can click new rule from here, and then you actually have to pick which bank account. Give it a name, a description, and an expense category. Make sure you consider your GST. And remember that you can do rules for income as well. So you could add a rule for income. And if it was, we're going to actually say it's money coming in. So this might be a deposit. So we say the word deposit, or we might say it's owner's, like an owner contribution. So depending on the person, they might use a different name in their description every time they send money into the account. Or it might be that you're receiving money from a particular client. Let's say, Medicare reimburses you. So we could say, okay, every time money comes in from Medicare, we're going to deposit this amount because we've said it's money coming in and it's a deposit. And so therefore we want to add a new, here we go. We'll add in here sales, and we're going to put Medicare in there as the payee, and we can save that. You will need to make sure that it's got GST on that, but we'll just put it in for now, and we'll save that one there. We're not going to automatically allocate those in. We'll keep that turned off so we can check them in the banking. So that's how you'd add an income item as a rule. And if we want to do that from the bank transaction page, again, we do the same thing. We've got an ATM deposit here. We can figure out who the customer would be. That could be tips, or it could be a particular customer who you want to allocate that against. Or it could be that it's actually got to get matched. But if it's a rule, like it's always coming from, let's just say the RSL. So the RSL, so we'll copy that across here. And we're going to say that that's just some retail sales. We pop in the GST here as GST sales. Again, it's asked us that question. Do you want to make it the default? We'll say yes. And this time we can again go and create that rule right here from the banking section. So I'm going to call this one RSL deposits. Deposits. And then we can test the rule, we can adjust the rule, change the GST and everything here, give it some more conditions if we need to, make sure it's going to all bank accounts, and then save. So we've now got the three items coming up in the rule. So that's how you create a rule, everyone. Enjoy, and let me know if this was useful.